And now, ladies and gentlemen,
Put your thumbs up and say it's Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo.
Tickety boo, tickety boo, everything's tickety boo.
Tickety Boo, son. Tickety Boo.
Tickety boo.
You ever feel like you're just getting through life? Like every day's a sprint to some finish line that keeps moving? Work, responsibilities, everyone else's needs. Meanwhile, you're running on fumes. Here's the thing. Success isn't meant to break you. It's not supposed to cost you your life. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about building something that actually feels good to live in. This is Tickety Boo, and today we're doing success without the burnout. Welcome back to another episode of Tickety Boo. Today we are going to be talking about something that maybe we all get a little bit lost in, and that is success. And why is it we find ourselves in our lives compromising our happiness, our overall well-being, chasing this thing of success that actually, if you sat down and says, what does success look like, you might struggle to define it. So we're going to get in it today. I'm back here with Iona, and Barney's ready to jump in as well, and Ian. I think the first thing, it's the first episode of 2025. So how have you guys been? What have you been up to? Any interesting changes or anything that you're going to be chasing for 2025?
Well, let's just rephrase that. It's the first episode we're recording, but this is going to come out later.
Yeah.
What am I am actually shifting up what success is for me, actually, and redefining it. I'm going to be spending also more time with my family. As you know, as I've shared, one of my brothers died now last year by suicide. So making sure I see the family that I have, and also my son and my nephew, his son, are off traveling in Asia. So,
oh, fantastic.
Yeah, this is what 21-year-olds should be doing. So I'm suddenly going to be home, just me. So it's going to be interesting.
Brilliant. What about yourself, Ian? Stepping into 2025, any changes, anything you've started to do or want to do?
Well, we had a great Christmas break, lots of time with the family. I don't normally do New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
This year, yes. There's a few things that I'm not too comfortable about, like mainly with sort of videos and social, a bit out of my comfort zone. So
yeah,
I've committed to leaning into that and overcoming that. I've also sort of looked at a couple of relationships with family and friends. I've decided to change those, just really commit a bit more time to those that, you know, that have been there always for me, and maybe I could just make a bit more of an effort.
Yeah, I kind of sense a lot of people are, especially this early in the year, sort of 2025 is the year of change. I've noticed myself unconsciously wanting to do things a little bit differently. I haven't consciously gone into the year going, here's my New Year's resolutions, here's what I want to do. I've just found myself leaning into a couple of things. The first thing I've started with the year is actually my health. I've started intermittent fasting, which I've wanted to try for ages, and I absolutely love it. And I've decided to do it because I'm intermittently fat during the year. So I've done the whole now. I'm about 3 weeks into 8 p.m. I finish eating, and I don't eat till midday the following day. And as somebody that always loved their breakfast, I have to say I haven't missed it. My energy's good, my clarity's good. So for me, it's working really well. I've set myself a couple of challenges. One I'm doing at the moment is to do 100 videos on TikTok. So 5 days a week. I'm not doing videos on Saturdays and Sundays, but I'm putting videos out 5 days a week. As it stands of today, recording this episode, the 9th video's gone live today. Why am I doing it? It's not really so much about the videos, although they do help people. It's about setting yourself something, getting into the rhythm of doing it and hanging a number on top of it. And the creative process I find is really good for my brain. So that's kind of what I've done, sort of stepping into the year. And all these things can feed into episodes as well.
Yeah, I love that, because also you're developing a habit in and of itself, habit stacking, and that is what leads to success, whatever we want to deem success is.
Yeah.
For you, that goal, going to do TikTok videos every day, that's an achievable goal and it suits you. So yeah, I think it leads perfectly into what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, totally it does, because whether you've got a job or you're self-employed or whatever it is you do, I think with success, we tie so much of what we deem to be success into being busy. So for me, being a therapist in a therapy room, my idea of success was my diary's full. I've filled every slot for the week to see clients. So that at one point in life was success to me. But actually, that's not success. That view that you need to be busy in order to become successful, that was something that's been handed to us from somewhere else. It's not our thing. I don't know if it's a case of maybe we grew up watching our parents and people around us working hard to give us the life that we deserve, and we go, that's what we must do. I don't know, but it'd be really good today to have a conversation with you both about what is this success thing, and why is it that we sacrifice so much that is actually important to us to chase this thing?
Yeah.
So I don't know, what's your views on it? I mean, maybe we all view success differently.
Well, success, it's a personal thing. I think a lot of us allow our idea of success to be defined by everybody else's ideas and sort of external expectations of what we think it should be. And sometimes people get confused with the idea of sort of goal setting and sort of your values and what actually why you're actually doing it for. And by that I mean goal setting, it's something that you set as a task, but it has an end. You go, okay, I've filled my diary this week, that's job done. Or whereas living, to me, success is actually having sort of values, living to them and being happy with yourself. So everything doesn't have to happen all at once. It can be organic.
So do we define success by the amount of money you've got in the bank, your accolades, the things you've managed to achieve in life, or do we define success by the way you feel?
I think it depends where people are, what stage in their life. Definitely talking from definitely the people that I work with, initially they want to make a change in their life, they're entrepreneurial or they're business leaders, and success is usually about the numbers at first until their basic needs are met. I know it's so much easier to go after the happiness, the health, the well-being and all that when we feel that we can pay our bills, we've got a roof over our head. But there always reaches a point where when people are chasing that external validation and that external dragon of success, which is usually, it's the money, it's the accolades, it's the status, that actually doesn't feel fulfilling and they feel empty. And so that's when people, I find, really reevaluate what success is for them. And I think we had a lot of that in 2020 when COVID happened, when everybody's lives were forced to change. And they're like, oh, well, wait, look what I can do instead, and I can work from home. Or there were so many pivotal moments and switches, and we've done episodes on like that, those pivotal moments. I feel that success nowadays, with much more talk about mental health, mental well-being, interesting you mentioned intermittent fasting, where people, I'm seeing it again and again in businesses and within the entrepreneurial world, biohacking, how we can make the best of our time, of our health, of our well-being. And I even talking to like Pause to Prosper, like we need to slow down or we're going to head to burnout. And then we're going to have, even if we have that bank account, whatever that number is, because it's for different people. Some people want to hit like the 5K months, 10K months, like 100K months, like whatever it is. And then they get there and it's like, yes, that can provide some level of freedom and we understand that. But I've definitely found that people are really switching. There's a bigger awareness about what is success to me. What's my deeper why? Why do I want to do this? And I found that when I've run workshops, whether it's around money, whether it's around success or building their business, they always end up going, oh my gosh, I've actually been ignoring this whole area that's super important, like say family, or I've been paying too much attention to this and I'm not going home, or I want to travel more.
So the price of success, can sometimes outweigh the actual success itself. It's kind of like, for me, success and expectation kind of sit side by side. So certainly the there was a phase of my life, and I was never told this, but it's almost like I took it on. What success was: go to school, get good grades, have good friends, be popular, go to college, go to university, get a degree, get qualifications, meet your ideal partner, get married, buy a house, have kids, have money in the bank, be fit and healthy, do well in your career. No one at any point in life told me that's what you should be doing, but I was definitely following an unconscious roadmap of that. My parents never said it to me, my teachers never said it to me, but obviously my observation of the world around me is, well, this is what people do. That's what success looks like. So kind of what I want to get into with you two is, do we do that so externally people look at us and go, they're successful? Are we doing it more for what people think about us rather than us doing it for ourselves? Because I think you can lose yourself in that a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. We're sort of we're playing a game by a set of rules we never actually agreed to, or we never actually thought through.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But that, and it's quite an easy trap to fall into, isn't it? Because if you see somebody going completely against this grain of this route, somebody says, I'm up in sticks and I'm going to go and live in a shack in the forest by the river and walk the dog and not work and live off grid and all of that. A lot of society, for a period of time, goes, what's wrong with them? They're weird, they're strange. Don't get me wrong, I think there's more of a shift towards a lot of people kind of going, that sounds really appealing.
Yeah, I think it's having grown up in what would be considered weird. I grew up with the hippie parents, grew up on a farm. I left school. So for those of you in the UK, we can leave school a little earlier than any of our listeners in the US, where they have to finish, they have nothing unless they finish high school at 18. We're in the UK, we luckily have 2 points where we can leave. It's like we finish sort of around 15, 16, and then we can do A-levels and then uni. Where half of us in our family completely went and did our own thing. I left school early, got jobs, went traveling and did all that. I didn't feel like a failure, but then I have seen other people in my family who've done that and then compare themselves, but they've done it because they didn't know what they wanted to do. They just knew they didn't want to do the prescribed norm. And then there's been other people in our family who have done the traditional route, let's call it, and they go to university and then they get the job and then they get married, and they do all the things in the right order. And I think luckily nowadays what's happened is we've opened up a dialogue about, well, what is it people are doing? Particularly as I feel that there's more and more people going self-employed, going entrepreneurial, because they're not fitting into the norms and they're defining success on their own way. So I think as long as we can come back to what's true to us, and as you mentioned, it's so important that we get to reflect and align with our values, because that seems to be the one thing that is really out of alignment with people. Even when they get that big success, they're doing something that they don't even like. They're working for a company that they don't even approve of their ethics or their policies. So it's really if we can come back to what we value and build the life that we want from that, so that we don't need a holiday from our life.
You could argue, though, that the world as it is today, with economic instability and all the issues that we have going on around the world, you could argue that today it's a lot harder to define or create success in your life, because actually just trying to get by is difficult enough through no fault of your own. And I'm kind of wondering, has that led us into this kind of hustle culture where, you hear people about hustling and doing the grind and keep going? Do you think this feeds into, you must do that in order to get success?
I'd say yes.
Yeah.
I say no.
Well, but that's really good, because there's going to be different audiences who see it. Now, for me, social media, a large proportion of it anyway, does really sort of batter the drum of the hustle culture.
That's true.
Grind.
I do agree that's how it is. I don't agree with it personally.
I don't agree with it either.
But the first thing that you're told is, in order to succeed, you will have to sacrifice. And ultimately, we do have a finite amount of time, so it's about prioritising what's important to us.
Yeah.
But the understanding, I do it when I start a project. I say to my friends, well, I'm going to be written off for the next 12 months. And I automatically tell myself that for me to succeed and do well at this,
that's what I must do.
I'm going to be sacrificing and suffering for the next 12 months while I do them, which is actually utter rubbish. But that's just naturally what...
But see, if you don't do that, does that feel weird? Do you feel something's off if you're not doing that hustle? Like, here's 12 months, I know I need to sacrifice probably my well-being, my time with my family, sleep and all of that, because it's taking me towards this destination. If you didn't do that, do you think that would feel weird?
Yeah, probably. Because, again, it's ingrained to us that we have to earn, to have what we have. These are the things that we have to do to achieve or deserve the success.
And that's what I love about this subject, because nobody's ever actually said that to us, have they? Son, you need to do this. You must do that. Don't get me wrong. I am not taken away from the fact that working hard is part of success, but it's that hamster wheel that you get on, that you reach the success, and then it needs to do another like you said, the 12-month rotation of that's a year I now need to take out. Yes,
you have to work at it, but it doesn't need to be hard. So I think what we've grown up with, and I think where I'm saying it's like it's a no to the hustle culture. I think that's what we've had. So I'm not saying that's not true, because we grow, a lot of the limiting beliefs are that come from that unconscious patterning. It's like work your finger to the bone. You've got to work hard. You've got to sacrifice. We've got to let go of something that's important to us. But what I'm finding again and again, and I definitely feel that that's more that's been happening, certainly with the people I work with, is they're realizing it's more about the legacy, how they want to be remembered, what they want to do. So, because the hustle culture was burning everybody out, and women, it's like the girl boss, being part of the bros club. That's the old paradigm way of doing things. I feel that the more people that I've been hanging around with and working with, particularly over the last couple of years, they don't want to hustle. It's destroying them. It's destroying their mental health. But
what if you feel like you've got no choice but to hustle? So, if you're somebody who's, got a job, got a good job, or, whatever, you're doing the 9 till 5, you're doing everything right, but you're either not, or you're really struggling to make ends meet. You are then sucked into a system that's quite difficult to escape.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's right, and especially younger people. Or some of the young people I've spoken to, and anyway, things are becoming it's becoming harder and harder to find your way in the world and just to meet your basic human needs. So what you tell yourself is, I work harder, I work longer, but it's not the case.
Well, it's very easy for somebody to sit there and go, who's got a load of dough in the bank, going, don't hustle, it just burns you out, to somebody that's maybe living hand to mouth, or is a month away from a financial disaster. They live from payday to payday. Some people are running out of oxygen as they come up towards the last payday. So I want to make sure that the listeners to this episode aren't going, it's all right for you three to sit there, have got their own businesses and seem to be doing all right in life, going, don't hustle, take it easy, step away from the grind, stop chasing success. And they're like, I'm literally down to my last £1.80 in the bank account. But it's not about that, is it? We've got to, I think, look at it in a slightly different way, because I think sometimes what we do is we go, I just need to keep going. I just need to keep doing this with a hope at some point something changes or something shifts. I've made that mistake in the past of, if I just keep repeating this cycle, I don't know what, but something will happen in the universe and it will all become easier. And sometimes when you're on that hamster wheel and it's going at 1,000 miles an hour, it's actually very difficult to step off and take a look at, what am I actually doing here? Why am I doing it? And can I do it a little bit smarter than I'm doing it right now?
It takes courage.
Oh, it does, yeah.
It takes courage to make these changes. And I'm really glad you brought up these points because, we've got a very diverse audience and we do understand that people are struggling and they can be caught up in that hamster wheel and that cycle. So it's about figuring out what you want, tapping into your values and actually redefining what success is. And figuring out how you can fit that into your life because if you carry on doing the same thing, nothing's going to change. And as you say, you're a great example of that.
Yeah, and the thing is, I also think, we've talked about this before, comparatitis, we'll look at other people's lives and go, I want that success, or I need to be there, or I'm not at that place, so therefore I'm not a success. But they're in a different chapter of the book than you. They might have, they might be 12 years ahead of you. So you can't compare your situation of today of their situation now. But also, you're chasing somebody else's dream.
Yeah.
It's not your dream.
That's it. You're trying to run somebody else's race.
Yeah.
It's just impossible to win.
Yeah, but you also look at other people's lives and you maybe go, oh, they've got the house, they've got the car, they've got the money. And you instantly assume they're living the dream and they're happy. They could be utterly miserable. And the thing is, you could chase that dream and you could get to that place. And guess what? It doesn't feel like what you thought it did. And that's not a nice place to get to either.
No, and goodness knows what you may sacrifice along the way to get to what you perceive as success because you're comparing yourself to what everybody else has done, but you don't know what life challenges they've been through. And overnight success doesn't happen overnight. It takes years. And I find again and again, I mean, you'll know, you've built businesses. It's overnight success isn't real. When you see, look at J.K. Rowling, who wrote books she was rejected again and again. So it's breaking those patterns and those cycles and just knowing that when you're comparing yourself to someone else, you don't know what they've been through to get to that point. They may well have sacrificed a lot in order to set those 12-month goals like you do. And that's okay. Everybody's doing what they need to do to get there. And finding out what aligns with them is so important.
Yeah, and knowing why you're doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, we keep talking about what your primary driver is. Now, for me, initially, when I was younger, I didn't really understand it. My thought was just work hard, get your head down, work as hard as you can, as long as you can, and that's how I'll lay the foundation. And as it did, yes, I did. I laid the foundation. I bought a house and got my family set up. But then I realised afterwards, for things, nothing really would have changed if I just finished half an hour early every day. And maybe got home before the kids went to bed. So I've got big swathes of my life or my kids' lives, where I don't really remember the phases that go through. So I look at my nieces and nephews now, and I'm sort of like, well, is that what kids do at that age? Because I don't really remember my kids doing that, because I saw my primary role as provider. So that's what I did. And now I desperately regret missing those parts.
What I'm picking up from that is what you're truly saying is success was the ability to have time to be able to do things like that. That's what true success was for you.
That would have been true success, yes. But at the time, my definition of true success, which was based on what I'd picked up from everybody else...
Activity.
Provide. Rest had to be earned. It wasn't just something that I recognised as a basic human need. So, yes, I kind of achieved what I set out to as provider.
Yeah.
But I let other parts of my life maybe, I sacrificed other parts of my life which weren't really fair on other people, even though that's not how I saw it at the time.
Yeah.
So I look at other people around me, like my older brother that we both know, I love him dearly. But his success has come at the sacrifice of the relationship with his children and every partner he's pretty well had until recently.
And his health.
And his health, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I love that you've given our readers, our listeners, not readers, something so valuable, like just leaving work half an hour earlier. Managing your time, that's something that's a small, manageable step that people can do.
Well, I think, I don't want to say the words out of your mouth, but I imagine at that point, feeling like you could leave half an hour earlier felt impossible. Hindsight's wonderful. You could look back now and go, nobody would have died if I'd left half an hour earlier.
No, in reality, just it would have made no difference at all.
Yeah.
The guys were just desperate to get away because we were working silly hours.
Yeah.
But just to get away early enough to sit and have a meal with everybody, a family meal at the table every night, or to read a book. Fair enough, you can't do that every night, but that kind of stuff.
I think success, I've noticed, certainly over the last few years, that it's definitely not a number in your bank account, and it's not all the shiny stuff that you own. For me now, I define success of space to breathe during the day. What I mean is I can get up, I can have a cup of coffee, and I can take a slow walk into the day rather than up 1,000 mile an hour, finish, eat, sleep.
Yeah.
For me, that sense of I've got time and space in my life to do things at a controlled pace.
You've allowed yourself room to have the choices.
Yeah.
That's what it's about for me. It's nothing to do with money anymore. It's about, and again, it's easy to say that when you're not living hand to mouth, but for me, it's about choices. It's about giving myself choices. It stopped becoming about chasing money a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it started becoming about, right, I don't need a bigger house. I don't need a newer car. And don't get me wrong, I've got everything that I need to feel, but you can just keep chasing, I want newer, I want bigger, and you get stuck in this mid sort of, I think they call it the middle class trap, where because I earn more, I've got to have a bigger house, I've got to have a newer car, and then that's what people see as success. But all it does is you never really progress in your own life because you've got the same money worries that you had last year. You've just got a bigger house.
Well, I would argue it's actually it's a more difficult position to be in, because once you've got the nice house and the nice car, especially with nice cars, the nice car every 3 or 4 years needs to be changed. You need to maintain that. You need to keep that status. So it's one thing getting there. You've then got to stay there.
Yeah.
So you set the benchmark, but then you've got to keep going to sustain actually what you've got.
But again, I've now got a choice. I could go and do that, or I can go on holiday and spend more time with.
So quality time. With those that you love. Yeah.
And that's what it's about for me. I'm kind of over. I still work hard, so I don't want to get it.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of over the whole I work to live, which isn't right.
So
I work to live. I don't live to work.
Yeah. So how do we start to figure out what really does matter to us then? What do we need to do? Because people would argue, I don't have the time to figure this out, but we'll spend 3 or 4 hours in the evening watching mind-numbing TV or whatever it is. Where actually, if this is really important and you're at a point in life where you do feel like you're in the hustle and grind culture, you could take time out to really reflect and allow time to think about this. I mean, is it a case for a lot of people, you find out what truly matters to you by actually experiencing everything that causes you pain in your life, and you find actually it's not that important? But wouldn't it be nice to try and avoid as much of that pain as you possibly could? Because I've learned what's important for me by going to the other end of it.
The hard way.
The hard way.
Yeah, there's a few ways people can do this. There's an online, like if people like psychology tests, which I freaking do, there is a psychology test online. It's absolutely free. It does take a few minutes. It's called the valuesinaction.org. I get everybody who I work with to do that because you really get to see what your values are, and they don't shift a lot. And I did that just before my brother died. I did it just after he died, and I've done it again now. So it's been interesting to see what's shifted and what's come back. So that's just a nice way for people who like to have the analysis and it in front of them, and you can get a free test. Another positive psychology intervention is there's a process where you can just like center yourself, like just be nice and peaceful, and then you write. It's called the graveyard exercise. It's not quite as morbid as that. But think about, like, how do you want to be remembered at the end of your life? Who would be around you? What's important? And you can look it up online. There's a whole bunch of parameters you can do this for. There's guided meditations around this. But more often than not, you'll find that most people realize they're not on the trajectory to where they want to go because you're writing it from, like, you've done everything and how it is that you want to be remembered. And I think this is where we actually come back to. It's like, people don't remember necessarily the things we did. They remember how we made them feel. The communities remember us, how we've impacted people remember us. And I think this is where, like, what's the legacy you want to leave behind? It's important. Legacy isn't any longer, like, it's you're going to leave millions to your family or whatever. It's how are you going to leave people better than you found them? How are you going to impact other people and the ripple effect from that? And that's the lasting legacy that we can all do. And a lot of that does come around from the psychology. There's millions of these exercises out there, but it's called the graveyard exercise. It's really valuable.
I think, and a lot of people struggle with this question, is actually asking yourself, what makes me happy? And I don't mean like Instagram happy, the stuff you see online. What actually makes me happy? I know there was a point in my life where if you said, Andy, actually what makes you happy? I could have probably given you a superficial surface level answer. But actually, at a deeper level, what makes you happy?
How about asking yourself what makes you peaceful?
Yeah.
Because then sometimes that can be easier than what makes you happy. People think that's an elevated state. But more often than not, you'll find that when people are peaceful, and then, well, how is that happiness in relation to peacefulness and bliss and joy? I think people need to play more, have more fun.
Yeah, because I think the danger is when you get sucked into this unconscious process of how we should be, you actually end up creating a life you don't actually like that much, and you're desperately trying to escape, but you've got no idea of how you escape it.
Yeah, but that's because you lost sight of what your values are when you were building it. You're sort of building a house for somebody else.
Well, you don't actually know what you're building, do you? Other than as long as I've got a roof over my head and food in my stomach, mission accomplished.
So how do you sort of work out what your values are and what's important to you?
Yeah, but it's very easy to go, I want to be happy and I want peace. But when you've got to work flat out just to keep maintaining your position, I'm not saying it's impossible. It's not as easy as going, I've got savings or I could reduce my hours. Some people don't actually have that position. But even those people can start to think about how to move their mind to moving them out of that situation, doing things differently.
That's what I was kind of getting at. It's taking time to reflect, because most people are working so hard for this perceived success, they never take time out to just reflect and see where they are. Mm-hmm. Which again, when I had my accident in 2019, that 3 months in a wheelchair and time off, that gave me time to think, and that had to be forced. And it sounds dead easy just to say, I'll stop and reflect. But when you're so tied up in the here and now and the hustle, it's nearly impossible to see the wood for the trees. You actually need an opportunity to step back and reflect and look back in from the outside. Mm-hmm. And that's where you sort of start to see where the changes need to take place, what makes you happy, what doesn't make you happy.
Yeah.
Maybe what you're willing to sacrifice and you're not willing to sacrifice. And
this is fluid as well, isn't it? What makes you happy today wouldn't have made you happy 5 years ago. It's not something that's set in stone and then you stay on that path. It's something that's constantly evolving and needs to be looked at.
Well, 5 years ago, what makes me happy now, it wouldn't have made me happy because I just didn't realise that's what I need. Uh-huh. I'd have seen this downtime and this sort of quietness in my mind. I'd have seen that as wasted opportunity to be productive.
Uh-huh.
Whereas
when I picked you up from the airport this morning, the first thing you said to me is, this time's really important to me because it gets my brain into a certain mode and a certain flow, which I know is really good for me. Mm-hmm. So you're aware of that, and actually it's something you want to create more of in your life. Yeah. Where, not that long ago I would have been, I'm up at 7 a.m, I'm flat out. I'm stressed and I'm working at 100 mile an hour, therefore I'm achieving. I was just on a treadmill that I had zero idea how to get off. Yeah, and the problem is, if we use that analogy of running on the treadmill to create success and happiness, the treadmill's going at 15 mile an hour and you're sprinting away, but the legs are starting to give way a bit. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of people can kind of find themselves in life, doesn't it? And then now I've created this life, this treadmill that I don't know how to get off, and I'm not happy. You know, a lot of these episodes feed into mental health, and when we look at our overall well-being with depression and anxiety off the Richter scale in the community at the moment, this sense of success and creating this life very much impacts that, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, and I think if people can reflect on what success is to them and what their values are with any of the tools and techniques we've mentioned, it doesn't need to be a big pivotal moment in your life, like being in a wheelchair or my brother's death. If we don't, it doesn't have to be extreme for us to reevaluate what success is. Perhaps with people listening to this episode, they go, oh, well, hang on, I am going to take that moment. I am going to pause. I am going to go do that free online survey. I think just any time, because how much time do people spend on social media and scrolling the doom scroll when they want to try and figure out what they want in life, and then we end up like down that rabbit hole?
But are we doing that doom scrolling to escape the life we've created for ourselves?
Or distracting, or avoiding, or like there's so many reasons.
Yeah.
Get the phone out of the bedroom.
Yeah.
Read, do something else, or use your phone or technology to research these things we're mentioning and how you can change your life and what success is for you.
When we were just saying about doom scrolling, it's kind of, and you were saying it's almost like a sense of escapism. Yes, it is, but in a way, it's the most dangerous form of escapism, because you're escaping into other people's realities.
Yeah.
Which, like, they're giving the highlights, so you're trying to escape into what they've got going on.
Yeah.
Which then forms the habit of, comparison.
I think probably people listening to this episode, one of the biggest things they could probably do is start to work on their boundaries. And what I mean by that is their boundaries so they can start to protect their time and their energy. Mm. Because when they do that, you can then really start to reflect on what's important to you.
Yeah.
But until you create that space, you're never going to get the time to reflect.
Well, that's it. And then once you've reflected, you can start making them small, consistent changes that eventually compound up to that big change, finding where you are.
Yeah.
You don't have to figure it out all at once. We can just make the small, consistent changes towards sort of doing what's important to us now or seeing what isn't important.
Yeah.
And then that helps you establish the boundaries. And by establishing boundaries, a lot of that, it's about saying to your employer, this is all I can do. I have a finite amount of time. This is what I can do. Right, these are the boundaries. Or just saying to a client, I will deal with this on Tuesday, which is when I'll get, rather than just heaping more and more on because you feel you should. So then your work life starts to come into your home life and it all starts again. So then you lose your periods of work and then rest and recuperation. Mm-hmm. But those boundary settings are so important.
Yeah.
And just managing people's expectations. Mm-hmm. To just take that pressure off you. So rather than flitting between 100 things at one time, you can deal with one thing and then move on to the next. So you get that hit of achievement because you've achieved a goal.
Yeah.
And then you move on. But that's the other thing. It's understanding the difference between your values and goal setting.
Yeah.
Goal setting is just something that you will do and you will complete. Values is actually the code that you live by.
Yeah.
And what you work in accordance with to sort of keep you calm and peaceful.
Yeah. The one thing I've learned over the years is generally there's always a better way of doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And your job is to figure that out or connect, speak to people that can help you do that. Because certainly I've been one of these people where you go, I've created this sense of success. You know, I'm earning money and I've got jobs and I've got things and I'm busy. But actually, there were much better ways of doing it that would have given me time and space so I could have enjoyed the journey a bit more. Mm-hmm. We talked about doom scrolling and wasting time watching TV. There's fantastic books and things that you can read. I'm reading a book at the moment about running a business much easier by outsourcing and getting people to help you do things so you can actually get time to do the things you want to do when you want to do them. So if you're stuck in a life at the moment that you're really unhappy with, there will be a better way of doing it, but you've got to create those boundaries to create time so you've got the space to reflect on what's not working and start seeking for solutions. That's really important.
And what you were just saying about outsourcing or delegation,
Yeah.
whatever you want, some of that's about releasing control, because this pressure says I've got to do it all. If I hand it out, I'm seen as weak. I can't do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes there is only so much you can do yourself. So
Yeah.
you have to trust others. You have to release control, and sort of just open up that sort of space in your life for those things to change.
Yeah.
And then you grow.
And if we talked about comparantitis and looking at other people's lives. If there's genuinely somebody that you know that has created a life that they're really happy in, I can almost guarantee at some point they were in a life they really weren't happy with. One of the most powerful things you can do is ask questions. How did you get to that point? What did you do?
From a place of inspiration rather than envy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's also, and I think what's really feeds into this is besides having the external boundaries, it's like have boundaries yourself.
Yeah.
Like if you're self-employed or entrepreneurial, like you won't answer the phone after a certain time. Like my friends and family, everybody knows not to bother phoning me after 9 o'clock. I don't answer. My phone goes to silent. I'll completely miss it. And my phone doesn't activate again until 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So having boundaries myself, like something else that I've taken on is stepping away from the computer. I'm like, I don't watch TV much, or if I do, then I accidentally end up binging. This Christmas I got into the Vikings. But for me, it's about taking that time out. It's like, right, I have to walk away from the computer now. Not one more thing. So boundaries, working with ourselves.
Yeah.
Find somebody who is inspiring, who does have the success that you think that you want, and ask them how they got there. Ask them for the inspiration so that you can use that as a guiding light. And I think it's really interesting. Come back to your values, because they don't change. They're such a deep part of us, which is why I suggested the psychology test, because your top few they'll ebb and flow a little bit, but that's actually just part of us. It's not something we can decide, right, today I'm going to make this my value. Like we're born with these values. They're innate within us. But yeah, get really clear on those.
I think also focusing your energy on what's an area of my life where I've been sacrificing unnecessarily, and start there. Don't try and fix everything, just start defining those key points. While you were talking there, something came to mind. I was getting a haircut yesterday just round the corner, and
Nice haircut, by the way.
I get on really well with my hairdresser. He's a young guy, early 20s, and he's really into what he does. He's got the nice apron and all the stuff, and he's constantly going on courses. And he was talking to me yesterday, going, I've just had to do my tax return. This is the first time I've really had to pay some tax, because I've never really earned enough to get above the threshold, and it's now changing. And he goes, but I really want to buy a house, so now I'm really feeling the pressure. So I'm working all the hours I can work. So I appreciate everyone can get in. I've worked the busiest I ever worked on the run up to Christmas, and I said to him, you've got time. You've got so much time. This is not a race. And trust me, when you get to this place and you've got that space, it's not going to feel how you think it's not going to feel. There's nothing wrong with wanting to buy a house at all, but don't sacrifice you too much. And you're at a point in your life, you've got time. And he went, you know what? Coming from you that's got a bit of life experience, that's a really valuable thing you said to me. Thanks very much. I could almost sense me back then going, starter gun's gone, off you go at 100 mile an hour, hustle. So yeah, it's so easy to kind of fall into that space.
But that motivation is absolutely fantastic. He's young, he's full of energy, and he's super motivated.
Yeah.
And that's great. This is how dreams are built. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's about keeping it sustainable.
And not letting life spank the joy out of you while you chase that dream.
Well, yeah. I mean, I started early. Me and Louise moved in together when I was 19. We bought our first... We bought that flat, then we bought somewhere else. I can't remember. So in 2000, I think I was 22, we got married, bought a second house, and we did absolutely everything that I felt I should do as well, as a person growing up, as a young person, I ticked all the boxes. Mum and Dad super proud and all the rest of it, but I felt like I was stuck in a rut. I had a lack of social exposure, so the friends that I had around me at the time weren't really great friends. Well, I'd like to rephrase that. We all need to grow up. Still friends with them now. So. But
Were friends with them.
yeah, no, but those friendships have evolved, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
But some of it was quite negative. It was like you can have two conversations. One is you're on a dance floor and your friends will come over and say, "Oh, you dance like a wally," and another one will say, "Oh, you're absolutely on fire. You're looking good." You're doing exactly the same thing, but people are making you feel different ways, and that lack of social exposure meant I didn't understand it. I felt stuck in a rut. And then the one day, a friend of mine that I lost contact with for quite a while just sat in front of me in the cinema. I tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Oh, hello, how you doing?" And it was a new friendship group with a new dynamic, and then from there I started to fill in the bits of my life that I hadn't sort of done when I was young, which was the lads' holiday, the socialising, the learning to interact with people in a way that wasn't work, or so that was really well timed. But all that time I felt stuck in a rut. All this wonderful stuff that I had and I'd built up, potentially that could have toppled because it just didn't feel like it was sitting right.
Yeah.
Because there was just something missing.
So the question you could have probably really have done of asking yourself back then, and something certainly the listeners and the viewers of this episode could do, is who am I doing this for?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And is it really worth it?
Yeah.
That's...
Yeah.
And ask yourself the why question and at least 7 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the secret.
Yeah, why am I doing... Because if you say to yourself, why am I doing this? And you go, I don't know, then you need to take a bigger look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because that's where you can kind of get lost. Because fundamentally, success is about not sacrificing your well-being and actually being able to live a life that is fulfilled, because you deserve to feel happy. And the one thing I think we've all collectively learned is a lot of the pain in our life we create ourselves.
Yes.
By following these unconscious maps of what we believe we should be doing or what everybody else is doing. So actually just stopping, pressing the pause button and doing that audit. Why am I doing it? Who am I doing it for? What's the out? What's the end point here? Is it, well, I'll just keep going till I drop dead? What are my dreams? What are my aspirations? Where do I want to go? What does truly make me happy? It's a really big question, that is, and a lot of people struggle to answer that question. And then find time, find people, read books, and create boundaries to create this space in your life so you can start to look at these things. I wish somebody had sat me down and said that to me 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah, and if they don't want to write it down, they can actually ask a friend or someone they trust to ask them these questions that you've just shared. And again, with each of them, and why, and or the other way you can do it is then tell me more, because you get to a deeper and deeper level of understanding, and then we start to respond from an unconscious place as opposed to, oh, well, just because I want to do X, Y, and Z. And so we get to the deep knowing of why we want to do this, like truly why, what is important. So, yeah.
Yeah, think of somebody reading your eulogy.
Yeah.
You don't want to go, he was a great guy, worked really hard until he dropped dead.
And that's why the graveyard exercise is so important as well, because you get to reflect on how you want to be remembered and what would they say about you based on your life now, and what do you want them to say about you.
I think for me, one of the biggest fears is lying on my deathbed, regretting all the things I never got to do in my life, opportunities, experiences, places, time with friends. I think definitely time with friends, family and experiences are the things that will define your life way more than advancing up the career ladder and having the big semi-detached house and the big car and all the rest of it. That's just stuff. It's just stuff you pick up on the journey. It doesn't make you happy, and it also doesn't define success at all. I think it's been a really good conversation. Hopefully we've got people listening and having a bit of a think about where they want to go. During this episode, if you've maybe paused for thought and thought, what does success look like to me? Drop us a comment or an email. As always, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, please click that subscribe follow button so you can get notified when new episodes come out, and the same on YouTube. And as always, from myself, Iona and Ian and Barney, thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
If you or someone close to you needs to access mental health support, please contact your GP, or if it's out with normal office hours, get in touch with NHS 24 on 111. Alternatively, contact the Samaritans on 116 123. All calls are free of charge from any phone. You can also find more support information on the Tickety Boo website, ticketyboopodcast.co.uk.